Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today we are so happy to be joined by Renee Powers of Feminist Book Club, the podcast, the business, the subscription box, all of it. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you. We've already, we do this all the time. We just adopt people as friends. So you're like our friend.
Perfect.
And we're going to have really fun hangout times where we complain about business stuff.
Yeah. I love this for all of us.
I love that your podcast just fits perfectly with ours. And I'm like, why haven't we been hanging out before? That's odd. That's stranger to me than this part.
It's true. And this is a really fun thing because you're coming on our podcast and we're going to be on your podcast, which I'm going to admit I'm a little nervous about because you feel a little bit more polished than we are.
Oh, it's all a facade. It's all fake. Fake it till you make it is my mantra.
Yeah. And I love that it's our 12-year veteran here saying she's nervous and feels less polished.
I still get nervous. It's like I'm on a plane with turbulence, right?
I have to tell you, though, and I was telling Samantha this earlier, that I started podcasting because of stuff Mom never told you. I started listening back in 2010. Is that right?
Yeah.
Even before Caroline came on, it was Kristen and Molly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what inspired me to podcast. I remember drive. I had a 35-minute commute out to my grad school program, and I would. It was a straight shot, and I would just queue up all the back episodes. And I've been a fan ever since. So this feels really I don't know. This is really fulfilling to me. So thanks for chatting with me.
I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I'm almost I'm thinking back to my time because I was an editor at that point. I was the editor of the show. So that's so cool. It's those connections you can make over technology and you don't realize you've made them.
The parasocial relationships have become real social relationships.
Oh my gosh. Yes. It's so odd too working in this business. When you as an editor, I would know such personal facts about people who have never spoken to me before, but I work with them. It was just such a strange thing where it's you probably don't even know my name, but I know when you lost your virginity. Very bizarre. Well, okay. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah. So as you said, my name's Renee Powers. I use she, her pronouns. I am based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Minneapolis proper, not one of the burbs.
Okay. That's a big thing.
That's a thing.
I think that's a big deal for everyone. Atlanta's the same way.
Exactly.
We're not the suburbs.
Yeah. But I am the founder of Feminist Book Club. We are a monthly book subscription service and media company. We use literature as a launchpad to have difficult conversations about social justice. And we've been doing this for just over 5 years now. This grew out of a failed dissertation.
Oh, wow.
So I call myself a PhD dropout. I spent 8 years in grad school, 6 years in a PhD program. And I was studying gender and communication and technology and got to the point where I did all my coursework. I passed my exams, and then I went to propose my dissertation and I failed it 3 times. And I was like, I'm out. Yeah. It was just horrible on my mental health. So I was in Chicago. My partner is from Minneapolis. We moved up here together, and I was like, well, I had this interview project as part of my dissertation. I'm just going to do it as a podcast. And like I said, stuff Mom never told you got me into podcasting, listening to podcasts, and feminist podcasting, I think, is such an interesting medium. And so thanks to y'all and what you do, Feminist Book Club started as a podcast. And my listeners would say, you're always giving, book recommendations. What if you had an actual book club? And it just grew organically from there. We started as just a bunch of friends in a Facebook group reading the same books. And now we have, 1,000 members around the world and our own platform and app. And we talk to authors, and we have a, bi-weekly podcast. Bi-weekly as twice a week, not every other week. It's twice a week podcast. And daily blog. We're big on TikTok. We're big on Instagram. It's just rad as hell. So that's what we are and what I do. I just kind of guide the ship.
Yes. And it is quite the ship. You've got quite a large team. I was a little jealous when I was looking at it.
Right.
This is amazing. You get to work with this many people.
They're so cool, too. Every single one of our contributors and staff is just like the coolest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And I am big on surrounding myself with people that are just much smarter than me. So we've got kind of our executive team of 4 of us. We've got our podcast producer. We've got our blog editor-in-chief. And then our captain of commerce is their title. And their name is Ra. And Ra and I work in Minneapolis together in an office space. And so we are the only 2 full-time employees, but everyone else is a contributor and, doing 2 to 4 pieces of content every month and helping out on, the community and creating all sorts of really cool conversations, just starting really interesting conversations of like things that they are interested in. And therefore I am now interested in. So it's, our content really runs the gamut of a little bit of everything. We've got, someone who works for the federal government. We've got a former park ranger. We've got a science communication, professional. Feminism applies to everything, and we are able to use our team of contributors to highlight that. We've got a film writer. It's just cool. It's just cool. Everybody is just a romance author. What? Yeah, it's a great team.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do want to come back to the thing you said about being a feminist podcast in this space in a second. But just first, I have a couple of questions about how has podcasting treated you? How has it been? And then also, I find we have a book club on here. It is once a month and it's amazing. But I find that it's difficult to read a whole book for a podcast, which sounds terrible. But when it's your job, you're researching all the time, you're reading stuff all the time, it just becomes okay, and I hate this, but it's true. We'll be like, this book is too long. We can't read this one.
Yeah.
Have you found that has sort of leaked into your personal enjoyment of reading?
What a good question. So one of the reasons I started Feminist Book Club is because I was so tired of reading research. Dead old white guys writing about postmodernism, over it. So anything that's not that has always been fun for me. But to your point, yes, there are some books that kind of feel like homework, whether that's for, one of our books of the month, or if that's the guest that we're going to have on the podcast. I read everybody's books that's on the podcast. So yes, I don't know what else to say about that without offending people.
Anney, trapper, stop that.
Not trying to do a gotcha interview or anything.
I know I'm trying to trap her now.
Okay, Sarah. Oh gosh. But what I will say is I'm a very fast reader, and so I always have at least 3 books going at once. And if I'm reading something for quote unquote fun, so I don't have the author coming on, or I don't have to write discussion questions for our book club, I am not afraid of not finishing a book. Time is too precious. I will put it, if it's 50 pages in and I am not feeling it, it's just not the right time for me. It's not, the vibe that I'm looking for. I will shelve it. I'm unapologetic about not finishing books. I also listen to most books on audio rather than reading physical books. And Feminist Book Club does have an audiobook subscription.
Nice.
And I find that being able to constantly be listening to something I get through so many more books because I can do it, while I'm walking my dog, while I'm washing dishes, while I'm doing yard work, So 90% of the time I've got, earbuds in and I'm listening to a book on at least 1.5 speed.
Oh, interesting. I love it when people write it like, I only listen to it this speed. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Your audiobook is great at 1.5 speed.
Yay! That's good to know. That's how I listen to myself as well. So if not too like chipmunk effect.
Yeah, you both sound great. That's a great speed for y'all.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
I like to hear it.
It's true though. It is. Oh, I'm sure we'll probably talk about this a bit when we are on your show, but it is one of those things that we kind of had to say to our boss, which felt strange. It felt like he was assuming this is going to be a grand slam because you've got like an audience. And it's like, yeah, but people listen to things because they can do something else while they're listening to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just different mediums. Like I'm not sure it's going to translate necessarily, but both Samantha and I foolishly didn't realize we were going to do an audiobook, which I'm so happy about. Like it's very cool, want to be accessible, all that stuff. But it is different when you can walk your dog or cook or do something while you're listening to a book.
And I'm one of those people that I always have to be doing something with my hands. Like, so it's hard for me to sit down and read a book. I'm very like fidgety. And so what I often do then, I got really into cross stitching.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I have just dozens of cross stitching projects that I'm working on, and I will just sit on the couch, listen to my book, and do my little cross stitching because I'm 75 years old and unashamed of it. And I'm also in I'm calling it my cozy mystery era. Like all I want to read are like women solving murders, but like cozy.
Yes.
So yes, I just make me a cup of tea and, reserve a bed at the old folks home for me because I'm
Sounds
Doesn't
great.
sound bad to me.
No. Samantha was looking for a lazier version of cozy game.
Yeah. Like I'm like trying to actually do things and having quests. Nah, that's okay. I'm good. I want to do something even less than that. What do I just click on things? Thank you.
That's how I got. You want to talk about games? That's how I got into Animal Crossing because it's just like, I just want to sit here and fish.
Well, that's the thing is like I literally stopped building things because I was like, I don't want this to be a whole village. I want it to be by 5 people and I just go sell fish. Like I don't understand what this is. Even to the point like I actually tried to start knitting and I did okay. I did a couple of rows and I was like, and I'm done. That's where it went. So I'm really good at it.
Yeah. It's all right to change.
If you had an audiobook, you'd do a few more rows.
I'm an odd person when it comes to audiobooks. I will play phone games while I'm listening to the audio, or I will work. Like I do the double whammy of that.
No.
So yeah. But I like your version better, except for the fact that I'm not talented enough to do the stitching.
Yes.
Oh, it's just following a map. It's so easy.
This is what people tell me, and then I try it, and then it comes out a blob. I'm like, you lied to me.
But then you get to rip out all the stitches and start over, which is also really satisfying.
Is it? Okay, because in my mind, I'm just automatically breaking the string and throwing it across the room and screaming at my failures.
Fair enough.
That sounds, totally healthy. No, really. I could chat all day about this kind of stuff, but you did propose a serious topic for this episode, which is something that we struggle with, that we think about a lot. And that's when you are an intersectional feminist, and that's something that's part of you, but you're still in this capitalist space that is not that, and in fact, antithetical to that. So how to be a feminist in a space that is not, when we do have to, have livelihoods and make money and survive, but how to do that. So if you can just talk about your initial, because you said you've done a lot of interviews about this lately, you've been thinking about it lately, sort of when you sent this idea to us, what was on your mind? What are you thinking about? Yeah.
So it's something that I think about constantly, is how to run a feminist business, because like you said, that feels contradictory. And it's something I change my mind about all the time. And this is something you all discuss in your book too. And I love that you talk about this fear of failure is detrimental to the feminist movement. And I've been screaming that from the top of my lungs, right? That, if I don't show up, try, and fail, like if I don't show up and try knowing that I could fail, like that's not moving anybody forward, right? So all I'm saying is like, this is my approach and I will likely fail, but that's okay because we will all learn something from it, right? So how do we participate in capitalism and critique capitalism at the same time is something I think about a lot. And the short answer is capitalism is compulsory. Like there's nothing that we can do to remove ourselves from capitalism and still be just like a functioning human in the society. So that means that we have to participate in capitalism ethically. And so how do we do that? What does that look like? And so that's what I have been like, how to be an anti-capitalist business is like really hard, but how to be an ethical business that prioritizes the needs of its customers, the needs of its employees, the needs of its staff before profit. I think that is what sets feminist businesses apart from your run-of-the-mill, even small business. I was gonna say like Walmart, but like even there are a lot of small businesses that are just in it for the bottom line. Yeah, every decision that is made in this business comes from a place of people over profit. Like, yes, we have to pay our bills, but if by chance we can't pay our bills, we will still pay our people. And that's a real thing, right? We're in a recession, and there are times, like right now, I was just telling y'all before we started recording, like our office space was broken into 4 times in the last month, and we lost, over $5,000 worth of equipment. Like all of our festival stuff is gone. It's so frustrating. And insurance won't cover it, which is really great.
Yeah. Like, what is this for?
I love it. So like we started I believe deeply in mutual aid too. And so we started a GoFundMe, and we're starting to like recoup some of those costs, and anything left over is going to start to help us get the ball rolling on reincorporating as a feminist co-op, an employee-owned co-op. So I wanted to get this business off the ground so it was stable, it was running, it had systems and processes, right? And then I wanted to step away. And so that's what we're in the process of right now, is putting the business in the hands of the actual community. Like I said, my background is in feminist theory. And so I come at this not from a business standpoint. I don't have a background in business. I don't have a business degree, but I come from this from a theory background. And what does it look like when we put feminist theory into action? And there is a research method called feminist participatory action research. And I have tried my best to adapt that to running a business. And what that really means, it's a feedback loop, right? Of, we're thinking about this decision. What do you think? We want to go this direction. What do you think? This goes all the way down to like the books that we pick. I don't pick them. Our members pick them. Like I choose a theme because I'm like, well, we haven't read Native American voices lately. So like, let's do Native American Voices Month, something along those lines. We haven't read trans voices. We haven't read about Hollywood. So like our next theme is in the zeitgeist, right? Because they're on strike, but it's a night at the movies. So we're going to be having conversations about the strike and the labor movement, but, all under the guise of reading fun Hollywood stories. So I propose the theme. Our members suggest titles based on that theme, and then everybody votes. And that's what gets chosen as the book of the month. So yeah, learning with and from participants instead of like teaching, like just not assuming I'm the smartest person in the room, because I'm absolutely not, but bringing our community into the decision making has been really rewarding, and then they feel invested in it too. So I think I just gave you like all of my word salad about about running a feminist business. So yes, so let's synthesize here, right? So restructuring into a co-op, people over profit, prioritizing our customers' opinions and asking for their feedback. I think, and opening up this feedback loop. I think those are the hallmarks of how we run a feminist business and how we, push back against and participate in capitalism in an anti-capitalist way. We're not in it to make $1 bajillion. Nobody sells books to make $1 bajillion unless your name is Jeff Bezos and he can get whoop.
Oh, good. Agree.
Also, can we actually make money? Because I want to make money with the book. How do we do this, Anney?
Sorry. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but
Cool.
Son of a. Okay.
Sorry, friends.
As expected, but
As expected. Yes.
Yeah.
I thank you. I love the wrap up. That was, you can tell that you've definitely done
The Cliff notes at the end of my
You've done a
rant,
presentation.
yeah.
I see your PhD in here, like trying to do the defense. I love this.
Not quite a PhD. I'm considered ABD, all but dissertation.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna say you have it because you worked hard.
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
were
I
you were
appreciate
so.
it. You can still call me Professor Powers.
I will every day. But yeah, I think that's such an interesting conversation because we've had to have a back and forth about like, yeah, we need money to live. So we can't say, because like we have a lot of ads and advertising and we try to be very, very, very conscious of what we say yes and no to. And of course, sometimes we just don't have any control at all. And the like pushback we get, because we are an absolute and we stand by the intersectional feminist, we make mistakes or we may not know every information, because as much as we want to be those upstanding people, the fact of the matter is this is a job. We have to make money. I have to do things kind of the same way when I was in social work of like, I'm doing some things that I really hate, but I'm trying to do it in the best and more conscious way possible, knowing that I'm fighting a system that's rigged against everyone, every marginalized group in so many ways. Like, have you had a lot of conversations on how to like navigate that for yourself, especially when it comes to like advertising and all of those?
Yeah, we do sell advertising and we are very picky about who we are willing to work with. And that's one of the pluses of being independent is we don't have a parent company that we have to make money for. Like we are making money for ourselves to keep this ship afloat. So we only work with women, gender nonconforming, or queer, or people of color. In terms of like the books that we spotlight, the companies that we work with for like the products that come with the books, because we do send out like a sticker or like a bookmark or something like small and cute. And we do quarterly boxes that are full of goodies and books, and those all those things come from small marginalized identity businesses, including like our web developer and our podcast editor, our printer that we use for like inserts and stickers and stuff. So like when we spend money on something, we are doing that within our values. When we take money from someone, I don't care who we take money from. As long as that product is aligned with us, gosh, and very rarely have we worked with cis men and cis male owned businesses. But I'm not going to say no to if like Casper mattresses or something. Like I'm just going to assume they're owned by a white guy. If Casper mattress wants to like give me $1 bajillion to pitch them on our podcast, like, or like a free mattress, like,
thank you.
Yeah. Yes. And like one for all of our friends, like,
right.
Because you're giving me money and I feel like that's feminist. But if it's like a company that sells only like MAGA hats, absolutely not. Like, right. I don't care if you give me $1 bajillion. I'm not going to, sell AR-15s on our podcast. But like a mattress owned by a cis white guy, probably. Yeah. Yep. So like that's like we could be really picky, but thankfully we haven't had to run into those issues. It's the flows of money, right? It's the flow of capitalism and like redistributing it. And that's one thing also is like we work primarily with woman-owned businesses because studies have shown when you put capital in the hands of a woman-owned business, A, you will lift generations out of poverty, but B, it will also be redistributed amongst that community. So the fact that we are more likely to give our dollars. We are 100% likely to give our dollars to small women-owned and minority-owned businesses. Just means that money continues to do good in whatever community they serve, instead of going into, if we were to like give money to Bezos, for instance, that's just going into his pockets and into his like 401k. Does he even have a 401k? Probably not. Like, he is a 401k. But like, you know what I mean? It's going into like investments, which doesn't do anybody any good except for him. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ended up hitting on a topic where it was an inside joke for us about me trying to get a damn mattress from Jump, like, because right before,
that's hilarious.
Right before I started, everyone, that was one of the big things, is those individual mattresses. And I was like, I want one. I started begging.
The best we've gotten is vibrators. We got vibrators.
I'd be happy with that too.
But they were woman-owned. They were woman Latina owned. So like,
we had someone on who had this amazing vibrator. I was like, I want one. We never got it though. I was really hoping.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
She paid for it. I didn't want to pay.
I paid for it, but I got it.
Yeah. It was, anyway, moving on.
Well, that's one of the interesting things about. I think about this a lot, and sometimes I think this is kind of a petty thought, but sometimes I'm like, no, this is completely legitimate. But we sometimes get teased because we turn down a lot of ads. We really do. And there was this infamous study. Samantha didn't do it, but I had to fill out like this huge form where it took me 4 hours, and it was just like sponsors that you might be okay with working with. And I feel like for people who want to uphold intersectional feminism, that was a homework assignment, because I literally had to look up every company, what they do, where do they donate their money, all of this stuff. And I think that people who issued it were just probably white men who didn't think like they're like, oh, do you like this or do you not? Like that kind of dichotomy versus, wait, what do they stand for? What do they do? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I get a little grumpy because I'll hear some male colleagues of ours be like, no, I just said yes to that because I like that. I'm like, well, okay, but did you know about this?
Right. Did you know they single-handedly caused the fires on Maui? Like,
right. Like we would have an ad that we said yes to 2 years prior, and then come back and be like, oh, well, here's a new controversy and we can't use them now. Whether it's like strike things or union things or new recall, or you found out that the CEO was a man who did not care about people when it was branded as women-owned. Like, there were so many things that came back. We're like, what's happening? And then not only do we say no, and probably Anney, because Anney does this work, I love you, Anney, she's already justified why. We get another pushback of like, are you sure? Now tell me why again. Tell us why again. Like, and they're not, we love our ads, people. Please don't think this, because they're just doing their job. But the fact of the matter is, like, there is extra work to what you think. And like, we got another ad vetting today, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, we know this already controversy, so we definitely probably will say, like all these things. I already know what Anney has said in turning it down. And it was a huge company. And it's like, this is what we have to do. And then justify 2 or 3 times about why we can't work with them.
Yeah. And it sucks too. It's like, it's hard for us when we are purchasing things. So for the first couple of years, I live in Minneapolis. We were using Uline for our boxes. We didn't have branded boxes. We were using Uline because they are just across the state line in Wisconsin. I could go pick them up. Like, it was really easy. I didn't have to pay for shipping. And they were the cheapest on the market. Well, they're the cheapest on the market because they're a bajillion-dollar industry, and they're one of Trump's largest donors, that family, the Uline family. As soon as I learned that, I was like now I have to pay more. Right. To find something. But it ended up being great, because then I found a family-owned box printing company here in St. Paul that they were so wonderful.
Right.
Where they I was sick, and they brought samples to my house just so I could choose the ink color, and then we got them custom made. It turned out great. Shout out to Tilsner Carton.
I feels like this an Office episode of business owners, and they do these own things. Like, what? And they're so sweet,
but it's
help them.
I didn't have the time at the time to do my due diligence of vetting. It was just where everybody got their boxes from, it was so frustrating. And so now, So now we don't use Uline, and I suggest you not use Uline because they are a giant donor to the far right.
Yeah.
So
there's so many conversations like that.
But at least our audiences know that we are putting in that due diligence now. Like we learned our lessons.
Yeah. And when we get calls in, it's nice.
Yeah. And if we are doing, I mean, there's only so much work and research we can do, but we're doing the best that we can. And I think that our audiences, as an audience of yours, I know I appreciate it. And I also know that y'all need to make money. You can't do this for free.
I'm sure people will be like, why? Podcasting was like that to begin with.
It was, but it's not anymore.
It's new. You know, one of the other things I think about, especially when it comes to like feminist businesses, you want to be the person who supports the small businesses, that supports the marginalized businesses as well. And for the longest time, Etsy was the to-go spot. And now you're getting all this information about, oh, they're not being treated well. So this comes to the point of like, okay, A, as a small owner of a business, where do you go? B, as a consumer, how do you navigate that as well so that you're doing what you need to do to truly help those businesses? Like, how do you go through all of that?
Yeah. So there are a lot of marketplaces like Etsy, and for small businesses too, there are a lot of like wholesale marketplaces. And one thing that I do is like, there's the ability to message like the business owner on all of these marketplaces. Etsy, we use Fair for a lot of our wholesale goods. And then I always ask them, like, how do you prefer that I make this purchase? Like, would you like to invoice me directly? Because, yeah, I want to make sure that they're getting all of the dollars. Etsy's not going to hold on to, $6,000 inevitably for 6 months or something. Like, what Etsy is doing is really frustrating for a lot of makers. So I would just go, if I see something that I really like, absolutely message the creator and just say, what is the best way for me to support you? And make it as easy as possible for them. It's also like hard to do, and it's time consuming. So they're on Etsy for a reason. And so I'm sure they're not going to be like, well, don't buy from Etsy. They would rather you buy from Etsy than not buy at all.
Right.
So if you don't have the time or energy or spoons to spend on, going out of your way to message the artist or the creator, like it's fine. But if you do have that extra energy to spend, please do.
Essentially, like what it comes down to is, I know there's a lot of small businesses and trying to take off. Essentially, they're hoping that they're going to meet the gold mine of being viral. I know that's the new thing, and let's just be real honest, that's rare. That's not going to happen to most small businesses. As much as we would love it, I know like the small restaurants are hoping that a Keith Lee of TikTok will come through and like just blow up their business, but that's a rare occasion. So for any business owner who's trying to be, especially women, because we know that they are the least likely to get any help when it comes to advertising, any of that, what's the best route for them to have their business take off, or at least to be profitable?
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's excellent. That's an excellent question. First off, I will say that even going viral doesn't do shit. We have had several of our TikTok videos, get 500,000, 1 million views. It barely moves the needle for us. We will get a lot of traffic, but it doesn't necessarily, traffic doesn't equal sales, right? We'll get a lot of followers. You can't make money on followers. So it's like converting virality is really hard for a lot of people. So there's that. But I also think that there are so many really, really cool organizations that are created just for small business owners. Insert identity here, right? If that's queer small business owners, if that's Black small business owners, and women small business owners, there are so many resources. And I'm going to shout out a couple of them in particular. I was a part of the Tory Burch Foundation Fellowship in 2021, and they select, it's founded by Tory Burch, and she actually created her fashion line so she could give back. This is what I'm saying. Like, women do cool with their businesses and their money. Like, she likes fashion, but she was like, but I want my fashion to do something and like support other women business owners. And so she launched the Tory Burch Foundation, which focuses solely on woman-owned small businesses and getting them up off the ground and giving them the resources that they need to succeed. And so every year they pick 50 woman-owned small businesses across the country. And Feminist Book Club was one of them in 2021. And it's a cohort of woman-owned businesses from all different industries, from, finance tech to restaurants to roofing companies. And we all come together online to learn the basics of business, learn the ins and outs, learn new skills. But also, I think the most important thing that comes out of these kind of incubators or accelerators or fellowship programs is the connections that you make with other small businesses. Like, I have made so many close friends through these kinds of things who will be there to support me. They're just a text message away, or we have a very active WhatsApp group that is just like, I have to mute it most of the time because it is so active, which is lovely, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that women especially tend to lean on their communities or ought to learn how to lean on our communities for support in all sorts of ways, whatever that means. Like, hey, does anybody have like a marketing professional? I mean, just yesterday, I got an email from somebody in the Tory Burch Fellowship that was like, hey, I'm looking for somebody who specifically does, CPG, consumer packaged goods, sales through Klaviyo, which is like an email client. And I was like, I actually have somebody who works with integrations with WooCommerce. Like, these are very, very specific asks. And it's like, oh, wait, there's somebody in this group that knows exactly what you need and like can make that introduction. So it's just a way to network and to like grow your connections so you have those resources when you need them. So yeah, the Tory Burch Foundation has been fantastic, the connections that I've made there, but also there are local organizations like this too. So I'm also part of Lunar Startups, which is just Minnesota based, and they work with underestimated and underrepresented founders. So they specifically work with people of color, women, and queer folks. So I was a part of that during the pandemic. We started March 3rd of 2020 in person in St. Paul, and then the world shut down and we all moved to Zoom crying, and it was great. We were all in the trenches together, at least 15, small business owners in the Twin Cities. We're like, what do we do? Everything sucks. So I was so glad to have that resource because I don't know what I would have done otherwise. So just building these communities is so necessary for small feminist business owners because we cannot do this in a vacuum. We require, that's one thing that we learned in the pandemic, or we didn't learn in the pandemic that we should have learned, was we need to take care of the community's needs in order to take care of our own needs. And until we take care of the community around us, whatever that means, however you define community, we cannot succeed, full stop. So what is it? Yeah. How do we take care of everybody's needs in order to take care of our own needs? I think Robin Wall Kimmerer said it best in Braiding Sweetgrass. It's one of my favorite lines of any book ever. She says that all flourishing is mutual. We cannot flourish until we are in all of it together flourishing. There's no individual flourishing.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. And it's true, the pandemic really showcased for small businesses. It started that conversation of oh, well, we've been kind of pushing this to the side, ignoring this for so long. And now we're trying to have some conversations about it, some more healthy or helpful than others. But there was that aspect I did want to touch on, and I'm hoping that this will give you some room to really rant, because it's something that bothers me. Is a lot of times, Samantha kind of alluded to it, because we're feminist podcasts, we're women, moms in the name. We get a lot of ad requests from businesses that are pretending to be feminist, or any intersection with it, queer, during Black History Month, all of this happens, and it's just I've multiple times been okay, but you saying you're donating this, what are you donating it to? And then I never hear anything again. What are your thoughts on the people who are trying to use this feminist business model to pretend and to cash in, but are actually the most superficial things?
Yes. Yes. Let me get out my soapbox. You're alluding to incredibly performative feminism, and it is most likely white feminism. If we're going to keep it in the realm of feminist, we get so many book pitches in particular that are like, unleash the goddess within, or like, your warrior woman says roar, or like, boss babe, how to start your girl boss empire. And it's like, none of those things are feminist. That is so disgusting. Those are so neoliberal, capitalist junk. Can we get to the second and third layer of this? Because your surface layer white feminism is, I'm allergic to it. Like, please step away. Whew, yeah, it makes me very angry. But the thing is, like, I just simply say, like, thank you so much. This does not align. We are really trying to amplify the voices of folks on the margins. Not, let's be honest, like rich, white, blonde, yoga instructing, green smoothie drinking, privileged women. And if you are that, I'm so glad that you are here, because you need this kind of information in your life. This stuff that mom never told you, covers is like, that's one way to broaden your horizons. And yeah, there are a lot of companies out there and organizations out there that just give lip service to whatever is in the zeitgeist, right? That they're raising money or they donate to, we say social justice organizations. We say we donate to social justice organizations every month, and we don't name what they are publicly because for a number of reasons, because we're not marketing on that. Like, we're not using that as a marketing tool. And so our members know where the money is going. But also, I'm a strong believer. I grew up Catholic. This is where I wanted to go. I grew up Catholic, and like social justice Catholic, though, like the real Catholic. I'm pissing everybody off.
We're gonna get some emails.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I'm so sorry. But not Catholic where it's like anti-abortion Catholic, but like feed the hungry and clothe the naked Catholic is right. How I grew up. And one of the things that really stuck with me from Catholic school is when there's a verse in the Bible, and don't ask me what part of the Bible. I have no clue at this point. But there's a verse where it says, when you pray, go into a closet and pray in solitude. Nobody needs to know that you're praying. Like, you're not praying for everybody's brownie points. That's performative. And the same thing goes with our social justice and our activism. Like, yes, we need to be out marching. Yes, we need to use our privilege for good. Those of us who have privilege. Yes, we need to put our bodies on the lines, especially white bodies on the lines in front of people of color. Like, yes, those are things we need to be doing. And at the same time, your entire Facebook feed doesn't need to know that you just donated $50 to Planned Parenthood. Who is that doing? That's just making you feel good. And so I think a lot of businesses think that, saying that they're going to donate X, Y, and Z is just like, it's just lip service. It's just a marketing ploy. And it's really frustrating for me to see, as a company who has donated tens of thousands of dollars of our profit to social justice organizations across the world, but we don't use it. We're doing it in our closet and praying. God, I am so sorry. And this is how I get canceled.
No.
Praying it off. Cancel.
It is so frustrating. And we can't go into this because it'll become a whole going off the railroad situation. But it's like, I hate that I'm into what you're doing. I'm into what you're saying. And I ask for any details and then none come forth. And then if you're like, I don't know, Bud Light, and you do this thing and then they freak out and backtrack immediately. Like, it's like illuminating because it tells me you literally have never thought about what it must be like to be a trans person in this case, and all of the backlash that might be, but you thought it would be cool to cash in. Like, it's like uninformed. Yep. It's like it's malicious, but it's almost more uninformed than malicious.
First off, that woman in particular, Dylan, who just got brutally attacked online because she got Bud Light sent to her. Like, that's just, my heart goes out to her. What I would prefer, Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch, AM InBev, who owns like every major beer company in this country and beyond, what I would prefer to see them do is have trans folks on their board of directors. You know, like, I don't give a if they are giving a can of beer to Dylan on TikTok. What I give a about is if you are including their voices in decision-making rooms. Like, trans folks need to be in the room where it happens, you know? Like, it's not just, that is the definition of performative. If they had a trans person in their, like, marketing, the influencer outreach division, like, that wouldn't have happened.
That's kind of the epitome of, like, the privilege that people don't realize there is. So the fact that Anheuser-Busch, they had a little bit of backlash. All they did was stay silent, literally allowing this woman to take all of the threats and harassment and being like, oh, well, that didn't work. That didn't pay. Well, it did partially pay out for a minute because there were supporters for their second. And then their silence and apology shows not only their blindness, ignorance, and harmful behavior in everything that they just did without, again, talking to the right community. Who did they talk to? They're like, this person's a TikTok famous, let's send a beer, which we already know all the mess on that, and we're not going to talk about. But that kind of comes back to this whole conversation of, like, who is this for? Why are you doing this? And what does this do? And then when we look at who may be a woman, and this is the whole conversation Anney and I've had plenty of times, women supporting women. But what are these women actually doing? And what are they doing that is good for other women and other marginalized folks? So we have to backtrack. Like, no, it can't just be simply this and this. There's a lot of women-owned businesses. Like, I think about this often because, again, coming back to Etsy, because I try to be as whatever. But I'm like, yeah, but this person, oh, she's got some things on here that I do not want to support. She is anti-abortion. She is all these things. And I'm like, I can't support that. I have to dig in to see who she's selling to, or someone who has no standards. And I get to that point of, like, yeah, you have to make a business. I get it. But you're willing to put mega stuff onto your stuff and then sell it. And then also Black Lives Matter. That doesn't work.
Yeah, that reminds me, like, when we were doing, when I was purchasing for one of our boxes once, there was a product that I thought was so cute and it came in all these different designs. And I was like, ooh, so close to purchasing. And then I kept going and scrolling and I was like, oh.
Right. When you go through the reviews and you see who she's, you're like, ma'am.
No, we do not. We're in Minneapolis. We are not supporting somebody who has Blue Lives Matter on there.
Right. That's the other part to that. It's like, we have to hold our own accountable as well. And I say this as an Asian woman who, all this rhetoric and very, very, like, white supremacist rhetoric that I'm like, I do not support this. I do not support them just because they're an Asian woman. Like, we have to have that conversation of, like, that fine line of just because it seems okay, because on the outside, this is a person of color. She's an Asian woman. Okay, cool. Even queer people, you're like, oh, they're queer. Oh, but they're staunchly still somehow Republican. Like, I don't get this, but I have to know that this is not necessarily just supporting. Like, that's
right.
You have to dig deeper.
Holes come in every shade, race, and you know, color. Like, everybody has the potential to be a total hole.
Yes, that's how I live. Everybody's probably an. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, I like to think that I want to support, you know, first and foremost, intersectional, progressive businesses, just personally. But yeah, and if that's not available, a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business is better than Amazon. But yes, being mindful of, like, what's that person likely going to do and support with their dollars is really important to me.
Yeah. And I do think you said something earlier that I hadn't really thought about it before, but I often complain about this extra work we have to do. And I complain, like, it's like, I wish I could just be like, oh yeah, I like that thing and that's fine. But you're right. It does. I have heard from friends who have told me, like, I like that I know that you do that. It makes me feel better. And that's not to say we've made mistakes. We've said yes to things that later turned out to be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to learn from that and be like, okay, not that one again. Because a lot of times in our company, they'll be like, you said yes to it once. Surely yes again. No, not always.
Mm-hmm.
But it is like, it is a lot of work. And I don't think everyone has the time to do it.
Yes.
Or even the emotional, because we were talking about this the other day, like women typically, or marginalized people typically, are more drained from the patriarchy and from white supremacy and all this stuff.
What's happening in the world, yes.
So maybe you don't have the time to vet certain things. So I do think that is a value. I think that's something. I'm glad that you said that. You put a more positive spin on this whole thing for me.
And it comes from a place of privilege, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I in particular have the time to do this research and can afford it.
Yes.
And that's what's really, I don't want to discount the privilege that I hold to be really mindful as an agent of capitalism, because it's not everybody has this privilege. Not everybody can afford to shop at, small mom and pop grocery stores because they are more expensive. If Amazon and Walmart are what you can budget for, I am fully supportive of that. That is where you are in your life, in the society. The society sucks. Like, don't feel bad if that's where you are. Please don't feel bad. Shame is not a tool of social justice, right? Like, that's not going to help anybody for me to say, like, ew, you're shopping at Walmart. Hell yeah. Like, some people have to. And that's okay. Because I do have a little bit more time and resources. I don't need to, but I am glad that it exists for the people who need it. And that same goes for every institution, right? That there are institutions that exist. There are stores that exist for the people who need it. And I'm glad they exist. Do I wish they had more ethical practices? Absolutely. But that's something I can do with my resources and my privilege, is to push back and to make the phone calls and to, say and demand better of these companies so that they can continue to support underprivileged communities.
Yes, this is true. I think about this every time voting comes up, which, as you probably have heard, is rough in Georgia. Is that, like, I don't know how people who have kids who work many jobs have the time to vote, but also have the time to research who to vote for. Because a lot of times it'll be like, I can't find information about any of this. So I'm like, I guess this guy, I don't know. So that is a big conversation of, it's frustrating because it's like the Walmarts of the world are playing a part in keeping us in this situation, but also they are important because we are in this situation. It's frustrating, but yeah, I mean, it is, especially, we're in a city, but when I was in the small town, it's the only game in town. That was it.
Exactly. Same. Yeah. I grew up in Northern Indiana, and it's like, you got your groceries at Walmart. You bought your, incidentals on Amazon. It's just what you do.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Barnes and Noble. Like, that was the bookstore.
Yes. And you go hang out there, and you were cool as a kid. Yes.
Yeah. You get your Starbucks.
Yes. Yes.
And that's fine. It's fine, because that's what is available, right? And that's what is in a budget. And yeah, I'm never going to be here to shame somebody for doing what they need to do to get by.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Renee, for coming on here. This has been a delight. You are a friend officially.
Yes.
We could talk forever, but I suppose we should
Seriously
just sign off for this one. But let's hang out and just complain. I feel like I'm in a complaining mood, which is rare for me.
I love it.
This will be
That's
fun.
a hobby that I have. Complaining. That's one.
Yes. Thank you. Where can the good listeners find you?
The best place to go is feministbookclub.com. We're on Instagram at Your Feminist Book Club, because Feminist Book Club was taken on Instagram. But Feminist Book Club is available on TikTok. So you can find us Feminist Book Club on TikTok. And everything's on our website, though. That's the best place to go.
Yes, and you have show notes, which I am very jealous of.
They're not extensive, but they are there.
They're more than what we have, so I'm very jealous. Yes. Go check it out, listeners. It's amazing. Also, we will be on the show. We'll see how it goes. Yes. In the meantime, if you would like to contact us, you can. Our email is stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We have a TeePublic store. You can buy merch on there. Also, we have a book coming out. You can pre-order it at stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.